Tonight's lesson is by Dr. Alex Mekonnen, who knows firsthand what that's all about. He joined the faculty at Denver Seminary in 2008 as an associate professor in their leadership program. He's a native of Ethiopia, and he's also been involved with the Evangelical Free Church Missions Program for 10 years. In this lesson, he shows us how Jesus followed the radical principles of God, smashing cultural boundaries and breaking the rules of his own culture in the process. I hope you enjoy and are challenged in this lesson called Radically Breaking Cultural Boundaries. Let's give a listen to Alex.
I am Alex Mekonnen. My real name is Alamayo. I go by Alex for the sake of Americans. I'm originally from Ethiopia and naturalized citizen of the United States. And I have 3 children. I've been married almost for 25 years. I am an ordained minister with the Evangelical Free Church of America. I've served with the denomination almost for 21 years as a missionary and as a pastor. This morning, I would like to share with you about the Samaritan woman's dialogue and encounter with Jesus Christ. First, I would like to read 3 verses from the Gospel of John, chapter 4, verse 7 through 9. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "You are a Jew and I am a Samaritan. Woman, how can you ask me for a drink? For Jews do not associate with Samaritans." The last place the typical Jewish rabbi wanted to be found is in a Samaritan village. There was a deep animosity between the Jewish and Samaritans. In the eyes of a Jew, a Samaritan is non-human. If the shadow of a Samaritan fell on a Jew when they walk on the road, the Jew had to be cleansed. Jesus broke 5 rules in order to talk to the Samaritan woman. First one is Jesus was violating turf rules. He has no business being there. This land is outside of the Jewish box. He's aligned with the river religion. Jesus had wandered into enemy territory. Number 2, he was talking to a woman. Men would not even look at married women in public, let alone talk with them. Number 3, this is not another woman. She's going to bed with a 6th man. Number 4, she is not only a promiscuous woman, she was a Samaritan. And number 5, just by talking to her, Jesus deliberately defiled himself. Getting out of the Jewish worldview and culture, making himself vulnerable to the criticism, suspicion, and judgment of the Pharisees as well as the disciples, Jesus began the conversation from a common point of humanity. He asked for water. He did not display the mark of a Messiah to impress the Samaritan woman. He was tired from the journey, and he was thirsty, and he asked for a drink. The creator of water was begging for help. His approach was non-assuming, non-threatening, and it was very engaging. The woman startled not by the favor she was asked, by the one who asked her the favor. He was a Jew. It's a very simple thing for her to get the water out of the well and give it to Jesus. She could have done it in less than a minute. And instead, she responded with a question. "You are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? For Jews do not associate with the Samaritans." Her question gave Jesus a wonderful opportunity to open up a spiritual discussion that allowed him to uncover her past and her present without embarrassing her. She was more curious and interested in the conversation. In a healthy way, she was happy that her existence and her being, though marred by immorality, is known by the Messiah she was hoping to come. unashamed and with boldness, she went back to her city to share the good news of her meeting with the Messiah, the one who uncovered her true self without condemning her was too precious to keep him within her own wall. She became an instrument for evangelism and a reason for the conversation of her people. When a church historian writes about the genesis of Christianity in Samaria, he or she starts with the ill-reputable Samaritan woman and Christ, not Philip the evangelist. My question to you is, what do you know about people outside of your box? Do you think you have a common point with African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians living in the United States? Do you have any clue about the many other nationalities coming to this country? Are you a bridge maker through reconciliation, forgiveness, and love? Or you are a wall builder that isolates and insulates you? In the light of this context, I would like to share my own experience with the Evangelical Free Church while I was a doctoral student at Fuller Theological Seminary. A guy by the name Lloyd Childs came to Fuller Theological Seminary, and he was the first person who recruited me to be a missionary with the EV Free Mission, which is now called Rich Global. And I almost laughed, but out of respect, I picked up his application form and filled. And the reason I laughed and almost wanted to turn him down was I don't know if the Evangelical Free Church being open to other nationalities and to join their mission. And I thought he was joking, and I had a hard time to take him seriously. But he insisted. After I filled the application form, he kept on calling me, he kept on writing a letter, and finally I became the first black person in the history of the denomination to be a missionary and to go overseas. After 8 years of ministry, my wife and I, and with the team in Africa, I was able to establish the first missions program for the whole East and Central Africa in the black continent since David Livingstone. Are you getting out of your box like Jesus or like Lloyd Childs? Or you have built up a wall that others who are outside are unable to penetrate? The aroma of the gospel of Jesus Christ will come out and reach others when we are willing to break some cultural norms like Jesus did. When we want to express the Heavenly Father's love, as Jesus demonstrated and said to the disciples, "My food is to do the will of my Heavenly Father." He was not concerned about the Samaritan woman. He was not concerned about the suspicion and criticism of the disciples. He was concerned to fulfill the will of his Father. I just would like to leave you with this challenge and answering the question I have left with you. And I would like to repeat them. What do you know about people outside of your box? Do you think you have a common point with African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians living in the United States? Do you have any clue about the many other nationalities coming to this country? Are you a bridge maker through reconciliation, forgiveness, and love? Or you are a wall builder that isolates and insulates you? In the eyes of a Jew, a Samaritan was non-human. But in the eyes of Christ, the Samaritan was the daughter of his Heavenly Father, and she was his sister. I pray that God would bring us to this kind of turning point and spiritual insights as we worship and serve Him in this world.